in the last just about 20 minutes of mid-morning talk with Najma Kota. In our travel segment, I'm so excited to welcome our very special guest who is the founder of Hungry for Halal. Dilshad Parker, welcome. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you, Najma?
I'm fine, thank you. And you're talking to us from Cape Town. So we've just had two guests from Cape Town this morning.
Actually, I'm
uh,
not you from
oh,
Cape
you're
Town.
not? Yeah.
I'm from Cape Town,
Uh-huh.
but I relocated to Johannesburg about 3 years ago, literally just before COVID hit in 2019. We relocated to Johannesburg. So I've been in Johannesburg for 3 years now.
All right. And being in the travel industry, um, what has it been like in terms of just South Africa, apart from the international destinations? Do you think that we don't appreciate it enough, or do we know?
I think
Specific,
in
yeah.
I think
Sorry,
in
go ahead.
the last gee,
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I think in the last 3 years, we've certainly learned to appreciate our own country a lot more. I think there's a lot more options that have come about. I think in terms of the halal space, there's literally been an almost an explosion of
Oh.
halal options available to our community. 5 years ago, it was like you really had to hunt to find halal. You didn't have easy access to information, um, and I think the last 2 3 years, I don't know what it was about COVID, but suddenly there was. Yes, there were businesses that closed down, but at the same time, there was a whole bunch of new halal businesses that entered the market in that time, which was a
Mhm.
brave move on their part,
Right.
but it's really made it such a pleasure to be in this space at the moment.
Right. So local tourism, in other words, has increased specifically among the Muslim clientele.
It certainly has. It certainly has. I think we still have a look. I think everybody after the last 2 years is feeling a little claustrophobic, and
Yes.
you want to get out and you want to see the world again. And as things have eased up, as our uh,
Post-pandemic, yeah.
restrictions, yes, as our restrictions have eased up and so forth, there's definitely been a lot of people leaving the country, especially for places like Turkey. Um, and yeah, myself included as well, because we also went on a Turkey trip 2 months ago, and there's definitely that. But I do think that a new appreciation for local travel did emerge from the last 2 years as well.
Hmm. Well, today we're together talking about the Drakensberg, the majestic Drakensberg. Tell us about its history, the area. Um, I think South Africans know very well, but I don't think we can talk enough about this beautiful part of our country in the KwaZulu-Natal province.
Um, Drakensberg, I mean, obviously known for its beautiful landscape.
Hmm.
Um, it's such a it's a rugged terrain, but it's also so elegant and so beautiful. I've really only gotten to know the Drakensberg a little bit about a year ago, and
Hmm.
um, it was actually the first time I explored the Drakensberg was about a year ago. Being from Cape Town, we seldom traveled by road further than the garden route.
Right.
And the garden route is kind of a favorite of Cape Townians.
Hmm.
And coming to Joburg, the Drakensberg is about a 3 hour drive out of Joburg, which is very accessible
Right.
and and quite easy to do as a road trip. And while it's a little bit remote in terms of facilities, in terms of restaurants, in terms of finding halal, the um, the beauty of the area is just was for me was like it was profound. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Crossing over from Johannesburg, which is quite a flat terrain, driving through the Free State area, coming out in on the other side into KZN, into the Drakensberg area. It was such a beautiful road trip, and I was blown away by the scenery, by by the lush vegetation, because you're coming out of a very dry landscape, and
Sure.
you come into this lush mountainous beautiful area, and it just had its completely its own personality. And it's if you like, for somebody that moved from Cape Town to Johannesburg, sort of spending a few days in that kind of environment, which was a lot more green and lush and evocative of the
Yes.
garden with which we were quite used to. It was such a pleasure to actually stay there in spite of the remoteness, in spite of the difficulty in finding halal food and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can you share,
oh,
yeah, sorry, can you share
no,
any information describing the cultural and religious identity of the areas? Because a rich history, South African history there as well. If I'm correct, it's the Boer War, etc. How much of that is actually, preserved in the area?
um, I must be honest with you. I didn't see a lot of evidence of that in the areas that we traveled in. I mean, yes, the Drakensberg, the name, the Drakensberg Mountains
Yes,
were named by the Dutch settlers, and
right.
it's called the Drakensberg Mountains after the Dragons Mountains because of its shape and the escarpment, and so they gave it that name. And there's also the Zulu
Mhm,
history and nations that came up in that area.
mm,
Um, I must say though that the spaces we visited, and it was a short stay of about 5 or 6 days,
mhm.
I didn't really see a lot of evidence
Any of that
of the
history?
of the
Yeah.
Boer War and the history. We did
Mm,
visit the Royal Natal Gardens
mhm.
um, in the area, and just the word royal um,
Sure.
is evocative of the English settlers, and maybe that's a remnant of that old
Yes.
colonial past.
Right.
Um, but the I I definitely didn't see a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
evidence.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the best places for Muslims to visit and the activities that one can engage in um, if you're visiting the Drakensberg area?
So the on the way there, we came across traveling from Johannesburg through to
Mm-hmm.
the Drakensberg area. On the N3, we drove through Harrismith, and in the Drakensberg area itself, there wasn't very much in the way that was like facilities
Halal
for Muslims.
friendly. Yeah.
Yes, you'll find that there might be a few home cooks that you can connect with, and they might deliver to your hotels. There's maybe a takeaways or a road stop that you might be able to get some halal food. But one of the nice things we found on the way to the Drakensberg was the in Harrismith was a spot called I think it was called the Bergview stop,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a rest stop with some extended like a shopping area,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got a halal KFC, it's got a halal McDonald's, it's got a cafe called the Rapid Up Cafe, which I believe has been there for 20 years or so. And
Mm.
so it's a Muslim-owned cafe, and which also, when we were there, I was told underwent a recent revamp as well, because that whole complex actually is very picturesque. It's set with the mountain in as a backdrop. Um, there's a obviously it's a one stop, so there's a big garage and a wimpy stop there, which is not halal. There's a mug and bean, there's a souvenir shop, and so forth. And so there's a lot of things you can do. And I understand that before Eid every year, the evening of Eid, many of the people from Joburg and in the surrounding areas actually come and congregate at this pit stop. And you can go there and they sit outside and they order their food, and it is
So there's
there's
a festive
apparently this
atmosphere.
huge
Yeah,
vibe. Yes, there's
yeah,
there's
yeah.
this amazing vibe over the
Hmm.
evening before Eid. And I actually learned of this from one of the followers of my website, when
Hmm.
I had posted about our trip there, and she came back and she told me a little bit about the history of this little complex and the Rapid Up Cafe, which has become quite an iconic little place to actually
That's
meet up
true.
and go to.
That's true, and I think a lot of us take it for granted because we stop over there quite often on the way to KZN itself, but not thinking that it's so close to the Berg, and one can enjoy that as one of your accessible places for halal friendly food and of course prayer facilities, etc. When we come
Yeah.
back, we speak to our guest on the beauty of Drakensberg in KwaZulu-Natal.
Or watch live facebook.com/Salam Media.
Hunger ratios in South Africa are on an upward trajectory since the beginning of COVID-19. Over 23% of South African households experienced hunger last summer. At SANZAF, we aim to ease the hunger struggles of those in need by providing freshly prepared meals daily. You can be part of this by donating towards the SANZAF Meals Project. Visit sanzaf.org.za or call us on 011 834 6046. SANZAF, changing lives through development and relief.
Online schooling? Why not? Kurtuba Online Academy is the leading global online Islamic school from grade R to matric, offering South African caps and international syllabus. And it doesn't stop there. We also offer online madrasa for every grade. For more information, visit www.kurtubaonline.co.za. Kurtuba Online Academy, the leading global online Islamic school.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
South Africa, are you ready? Penny Appeal South Africa is proud to announce for the first time in South Africa, For Good Tour featuring Saeed, Rehan Karim, Muad and friends coming to your city in November 2022.
I'm grateful for every single thing you've given me.
Cape Town, 19th of November. Johannesburg, 20th of November. Durban, 26th of November. Get your tickets via Quicket while seats are available. Proceeds in aid of Children of the World Project. Contact 031 1100 573 or email info@pennyappeal.org.za. See you there. For Good Tour, brought to you by Penny Appeal South Africa.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
At the tail end of Mid-Morning Talk with Najma Kota, in our travel segment, we're speaking to Dilshad Parker, who is the founder of Hungry for Halal. Tell us about the Drakensberg. I know this is difficult to do when we don't have visuals. If we put together visuals, I think we can bring in the beauty and the majesty and the ambiance of this very beautiful part of our country. But what else can you tell us about the Drakensberg in terms of activities and apart from just the scenic beauty?
So there's lots of hotels and resorts in the Drakensberg. Obviously, it's a popular place for family visits. There's your places like Alpine Heath and the Drakensberg Sun and so forth. Many of these places cater very well for children and the entire family. And you hardly even need to leave your resort to really experience an amazing time and the beauty of the area. We ventured out. We stayed at the Atya Cafe, which is one of a group of resorts across South Africa. It's one of the more sort of budget-friendly places, but it's amazing for young children because they have so many activities, and that's true of all the Atya Cafes. The only thing, obviously, is that you have to travel with your halal food and so forth. They typically don't cater for for too many Muslim travelers.
Mm-hmm.
But so when we stayed at this particular resort, but we ventured out to a few places, and one of the places I mentioned earlier was the Royal Nature,
Mm-hmm.
the Royal
Gardens.
Natal Reserve and Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
And there's beautiful hikes in the area, and there's a place where you can go to the information center, and they will guide you on the hikes and so forth. And we hiked up to what's called the Cascades, which is the waterfall in that nature park, which is so beautiful to actually go there and picnic over there and just enjoy the falls and the water. And if you have little children, it's actually quite manageable to actually climb up into the Cascades and just enjoy the rock pools. One of the things we also learned about the Drakensberg is that it is one of the oldest archaeological sites in South Africa. There's fossil evidence of human beings as far back as potentially 1,000,000 years, which is just it's insane how rich in history this area is. So from a archaeological point of view, the Drakensberg area is actually a very important historical region in terms of South Africa's history. And then one of the other close by out of the in the area, I think it's also called Bergview. We visited on the R74. There's this coffee shop. I think it might even just be called the Coffee Place or something like that, or the Coffee Cafe, which you kind of see. We kind of just saw it by chance and ventured in, and it's this beautiful coffee shop on an like a. You sit at the cafe and you can literally see for miles, and there's just it's just such a beautiful view, just sitting there and enjoying a cup of coffee, and the scene is just amazing. There's just nothing for miles. And
Yeah.
further on, I know that there's also there's a guest house in the area about half an hour away from where we were at the Atia Cafe. There's in fact a halal guest house that I had
Mm-hmm.
recently heard of. I think it's called the Itumeleng guest house.
Mm-hmm.
And so while it's difficult to obtain halal, there are sort of options.
Mm-hmm.
Itumeleng guest house used to have a halal pizzeria on site. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand they've recently closed down, but the guest house itself, if you were staying there, you would be able to, they would serve a halal breakfast and so forth. So I know that they're still doing.
Mm.
And that is within a reasonable distance from the Drakensberg area. Just a bit further along in Estcourt, I know that there's a halal cafe there, and potentially in Estcourt there will be other halal options as well. But I think that's about an hour away
Right.
from the Drakensberg.
Okay.
So it's a
Well,
little
Dilshad.
bit far, but worth it
Mm,
if you need something.
sure. Dilshad, thank you so much for spending this time with us and giving us some insight into what it's like to travel to the Drakensberg as a Muslim tourist. However, I think it appeals to every South African as well as international visitors. And I think we're very proud of that, as it were. So I think having your halal, Hungry for Halal. Travel agency is becoming more and more popular, like you said, and I'm actually learning quite a bit about this since we've been featuring this on my travel segment for the last 3 weeks. So I'm sure people will want to visit more of our country, whether you're listening to us from somewhere out of South Africa or right here. Jazakallah khair, Dilshad, and all the best.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Nejma. All the best to you.
Jazakallah khair. It's our pleasure. Thank you. All right. I'll be back with you next week. And I know that in our profile interview, you can look forward to, well, I'm not going to say, but who will be my next guest? And then our very popular wellness segment as well. So we unpack all of that and travel. We end off always with travel being the light-hearted end to a Monday morning. I hope the rest of your week goes very, very well. I look forward to being with you next Monday at the same time, 11 to 1, Mid Morning Talk with Najma Kota. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.